Today we're going to talk about glittering vampires. Edward, we're going to talk about Wireworks playing baseball. And we're also going to talk about real wolves because they did not use 3D wolves in this movie.
Hey everyone, welcome to AsArt. We're digging, John. We're digging in some weird vampire stuff today.
Yeah.
Check out AsArt. That's basically audio and video links, and for the audio podcasts.
Yes. So let's just jump right into it. This movie's budget was 30 million. Hold on, 37 million. Was the movie budget,
which isn't bad, really. I mean, that's granted. A lot of these people got famous for this movie, so they weren't spending a lot of money on the actors and actresses for this. But I mean, there's still a decent amount of effects work. Whether you think it's great effects work or not, there's a lot in there.
There's a lot of practical effects for sure.
Yeah, which is cool. You know, which I like when they're done in a particular fashion. Yeah. We'll get into this.
And we're going to talk about the baseball. Don't worry, I have a lot of notes right here to talk about the baseball scene, but. Okay, apparently I was watching some videos. I was trying to get some background on the VFX and stuff. There's a deer shot at the beginning, which I don't think I watched.
You don't remember that? That's the first shot of the movie.
I think we hit play to watch. I went to go do something and I came back kind of thing where I missed this deer scene.
Nick says he watches movies. That doesn't mean he actually watches them. You know, yeah. That's the first shot of the movie. There's a deer in like a pond or something, and then something moving really fast just kind of gets it. But you can assume it's vampires. They're not glittering at that point, but yes.
I guess it's Edward, actually. It's Edward because he's a vegetarian, right? Because they don't eat human blood. But
how do we know it's supposed to be Edward?
Because I watched the behind the scenes of it. That's why I know. Okay. And then that's the only, I think that's like the only fully 3D shot. The deer, the forest, everything is all 3D.
They look good too. The shot you don't remember was actually very good 3D.
Well,
deer,
it's not that I don't remember. I don't think I watched the beginning of the beginning clips, but which was fine because I was there for Spider Monkey, so I'm good.
You better hold on tight, Spider Monkey.
I'm good. I was there for the Spider Monkey scene, so I'm good. But
if you had to compare the two of those, you probably should have seen the deer at the beginning.
But it looked good from what I was watching online of it. I'm like, oh, well, that looks really good. But then what's funny is they opted out for the wolves. You know, there's like a scene where you see like the wolves running in slow motion. And they just used real wolves for that. So I thought that was interesting how there's like a blend between the two.
I assume for the wolves, you just need them running. You don't need them acting in a particular way. The shot of the deer that Nick forgot / did not see, it's acting like it's feeding, and then it looks up. I mean, it's stuff that you would have had a hard time trying to get a deer to do naturally. So in that regard, I agree with what they did because wolves just running, you can probably get that whatever you need. You don't need them to hit particular cues, whereas that deer needed to hit particular cues for it to fit into the scene they're having. So yeah.
And then the visual effects artists they also said one of the most complicated shots was the glitter effect on Edward, which I thought was like pretty interesting that they said that. It was one of the most complicated shots, but it might have also been because of the way it was filmed. Because who knows what they had to do on the back end to clean it up to make it look good. Because sometimes they're like, oh, we'll just shoot it with his shirt slightly open or whatever. And then they give them, and they're like, oh, that's man, true. We got to rebuild this whole thing. Who knows what on the actual back end. I just know because of how long it took for that shot to get the way they wanted it to look. Originally, the baseball game was going to be played with a lot of sunlight. They were all going to be
glittering. Oh, no. So I would have just stopped and walked away. Yes, thank you.
I mean, they opted out because of the effects and stuff like that. But, I mean, that could have been a cool Top Gun moment. Instead of, sweaty volleyball players, you could have glittery vampires.
Let's go!
It's I don't know.
I kind of want to remix that scene now. Playing... But that's hilarious. Stop playing with them boys, or you have to change it to twinkling vampires or some stuff like that. Yeah. But you know what? It's interesting to hear that their hardest shot was the Edward
one of the most hardest shots.
Because it's I'm assuming based on the book that they glitter in the sunlight, but what does that exactly look like? That's going to vary from person. It's like Gollum in Lord of the Rings. Everybody knows exactly what Gollum looked like, but not many people had the exact same, kind of vision mentally. And if they didn't have that really set up when they went on the set to do that, or, on location to do that, they could have thought, well, this could go really well, or this could not go really well. You're right. They may have not done any practical effects at all. For whatever reason, the glitter made me think of the first Star Wars with the lightsabers, where they would wrap a rotating tube in Scotch light, which is like a really reflective, like they use that for projector screens, I think. So you hit it with the light and it reflects back like at magnitudes more bright. And that's, obviously they're not going to put projector screen on the dude, but something like that practically might have helped. But I remember hearing about that 1977 Star Wars original release. They've changed that now in the remasters,
Yeah.
but they had a hard time. You had to stand in a perfect spot for the light to reflect off. And anyway, long story short, I have no idea if they had difficulty in that regard, but if they didn't have it really thought out when they got on set or on location, that could have been a really hard effect to achieve for that reason.
And it also looked like the director for like previs and stuff, she did like a low film quality shot with the actors, and then they would use that as previs. So I don't think it might have been drawn out. I couldn't find any like drawings of the previs, but it was all kind of like handheld cameras, like low res quality, so they kind of get a rough idea the whole sequence of the shots and stuff like that.
So that's cool. So they kind of did the Return of the Jedi approach, where they got their little Kenner action figures, since they had all kinds of Star Wars, and they'd go through the
it was with the actual actors though.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. They do a real live action instead of previs drawing and kind of pan and scan stuff. They actually did. That's cool. That's probably the smart way to do it, because then probably the actors and actresses have a better idea what to expect as well.
Yeah.
So that makes me change my thought that they probably did have an idea on how they were going to try and do the glittering when they got there, if they already did that before. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, doesn't she, I think she says something like it looks like diamonds or something like that in the movie. So maybe they might have had a rough idea what it was supposed to look like. But anyways, let's get to the baseball game. There's one thing.
I just want to focus on Edward's barren chest. I try and play away from it, but you know what? That's what it is.
It's very scarring for John. So the baseball, which I thought was interesting, for the actual baseball that they were throwing around, they used a Christmas ornament, a glass Christmas ornament ball as a placeholder, so it'd be easy to swap out the ball. You know what I mean? Like with the hands and stuff. Like, cause since it's clear, you kind of get a rough idea where it's easier to comp if you need to do something like when they catch it or something like that. So they already had like a grasp of the ball and stuff. So I thought that was pretty cool. That's a clever idea. I mean, let's go get some Christmas ornaments because they're probably on discount right now because it's February.
I mean, and let's be clear. If you haven't seen our other episode, we do kind of rip on this movie. That doesn't mean we don't like a lot of aspects of it or we don't appreciate the thought they put into it. It's just probably not my type of favorite movie in the world, but that doesn't mean we don't completely appreciate.
You said this was one of your favorite movies in our podcast.
It's above The Godfather, only below The Ewok Caravan of Courage.
Yes,
that's my
favorite movie.
Yes.
Okay, so and then obviously a lot of the stuff was practical. A lot of wire works or wire stuff going on, and then like the mats that they pull behind so they run faster on mats and stuff like that. They use that a lot. The sequence when like they come to those like three vampires that interrupt the game. It's like that moment in Sandlot where the other guys come over and they're like,
you play ball like a girl.
It's like that moment, but when they're walking up, remember how like awkward their walk is because they're walking slow and they're moving fast kind of thing. So they're basically just walking and they're getting like pulled along like a green mat or rug or something.
If the vampires, instead of glittering, would have thrown out "You Killing Me, Smalls," I'd have liked this movie a lot more. Yeah, a little mixing and matching there. Yeah. But
they did throw out Monkey a couple times.
Yeah, he looks pretty crappy.
Yeah. So a lot of practical effects in this movie because the budget.
And by the way, when we say wire work, we're referring to. By the way, when we say wire work, we're talking about if they're trying to jump super high or move super fast. A lot of times they'll have them wired up on a harness so they can adjust that. Just a recent example of that is in the first season of The Witcher on Netflix. The very first shot of the whole series, Henry Cavill goes flying out of water and hits the ground as if some underwater monster kind of pushed him out. Yeah. And you can kind of tell it's wired because I love wire work. I think it's super important. It's traditional. It works well in a lot of cases, but you can kind of tell when they're still pulling and then when they start to let them down. It's not just a drop. They don't want to drop Henry Cavill or Edward.
You can't break Henry Cavill. He's all muscle, dude.
But it is something that's used often and can work really well. But a lot of times when it's like jumping, I think it's a lot
trees.
I think it's a lot of the landing and the gravity. Wonder Woman 1984, I think Nick and I feel is the biggest offender to that in recent times because it just looks really weird. The running and the jumping and the landing, just the sense of gravity is not there.
Yeah.
But it's hard to get. You imagine these are the best people in the business doing this stuff. You have to imagine it's probably hard to get right.
We don't know though because it wasn't a big studio. It was.
I'm talking about Wonder Woman, but really for this studio.
You're talking about Wonder Woman. Sorry about that. Yeah, Wonder Woman has no excuse. Go, by the way, check out our VFX breakdown of Wonder Woman. We did such a good job.
That wasn't well. I don't want to say we did a great job, but it was a fun one for us. When we say we did a good job, we mean we had fun. Yeah.
Yes, we had fun just like we're having now. And baseball. Oh, so a lot of wire effects, even when they're running to the bases, they put them on wires. And so they're just like doing the motion while they're like on a wire, which looks that way too. Like that's why I think it comes off so corny for a lot of people that watch this movie. It's because it's wire work and gravity really doesn't apply to wire works. And I don't even know if gravity applies to vampires in this universe because like the sun, they don't burn up in the sun. You know, by the way, we did a podcast where I talk about the vampires and their weaknesses and we go off on it laughing a lot. So go check it out. I'm not even going to get into it here.
And by the way, they did do the running sequences right. You don't show their feet so you can see that they're contacting weird or kicking up dust or what. The whole thing is like clearly we don't have things in real life that run that fast. I mean, we have cars that move super fast, but supernatural movement, we're not used to that. So that being said, we don't have dinosaurs in real life, so we accept it more when we see it in Jurassic Park, which we just did a review of the first Jurassic Park. So sometimes not seen in real life is to a benefit, but then again, when it's people, we see people running all the time. So
it becomes
we expect
like the weird uncanny valley.
Yes, kind of. Yeah. And nobody gets this right. I mean, Avengers Endgame, Avengers Infinity War, they're running around like Captain America and Black Panther running around. It's like it doesn't look
on the
right.
Streets,
but then again,
like when they're running as fast as cars, it's just hard for our minds to comprehend.
Yeah, to wrap around ahead of it. Yeah. Whether it's CG or wire work or treadmill or anything like that. Yeah.
And I think one thing that kind of hurts those shots a lot too is when the camera tracks with them. Because I honestly think if they're just running across the screen, I think that would portray as faster than just moving along with the camera. Because when you're moving along with the camera, it doesn't seem as fast as if it's just like a blurry streak across your screen. You know what I mean? Like, I think
Nick made a really good point on our other more not visual effects breakdown, but just the story movie review as a whole.
Taylor had a really good question about the VFX.
Yeah, it was just more of like, if you can't keep up with something, that makes it feel like they're moving faster. Whereas if they're supposed to be moving supernaturally fast and you're keeping up with them perfectly with the camera, it almost throws it like, well, the cameraman's not having a hard, or the camera, whatever, in real life isn't having a hard time. So are they really moving that fast? My favorite is just exit screen, you see a blur, and then they just appear on the other side of the screen at a different angle. Like that, to me, conveys speed as if we can't keep up with it as far as cinematography.
And like even if there was just shots where like we barely missed the push off, or we just see the push off for a brief second, so it looks like we're almost trying to play catch up to the person. Says, that would give. And
I think you gave the example last time, Man of Steel, when Henry Cavill's jumping up to take off. It's just that charge up, and then a couple frames,
anticipation,
a fraction of a second, he's gone.
Yeah. We need that anticipation. Woo!
But that being said, do you think you and I, being visual effects snobs, I guess, if they didn't show him actually doing stuff, do you think we would have been like, oh, they didn't even show it, they just worked around it? I feel like we respect that, but at the same time, some people want to see it. They want to see the vampires having supernatural powers. You want to see them. So it's a hard line to walk for sure.
It makes sense. It's kind of like how in Iron Man, you have to see his face so many times for so many of the shots per the contract deal and stuff. So that's why they have so many shots with the helmet off and his head talking. You know what I mean? Like you got to show the face of the character and stuff, which I understand.
When I think of the old Star Wars movies, especially Return of the Jedi, there's a number of times where you see Luke ignite his lightsaber a couple times, Darth Vader, whoever. And then there's a lot of times where you just hear you hear it, being turned off, but they don't actually show it. I'm like, oh, they just wanted to save themselves some money. But then again, I always think did we need to see it every time? Every time they drop the lightsaber in the prequels, did we need to see where it landed? We can infer what's going on. And I think when you respect the audience with some of that stuff, it works well. And I'm not saying they disrespect the audience at all. I feel like they felt like maybe they had to show it when they actually maybe didn't need to. But maybe they tried different cuts and they decided, no, we need to see this. It's going to be weird if we play around it. I don't know.
You know, it makes sense with the Star Wars thing, though, right? Once you train the audience, once you show them with the sound effect, what it is and the sound, you're kind of already trained where you kind of know, like, oh, that sound, that means it's, it's extruding or going back or whatever it is, with the lightsaber. So they 3D mapped that whole baseball field scene.
Oh, wow. And that's impressive. That's really cool.
Just in case they needed to do something. Obviously, they probably did, with the wire work.
Did they talk about how they did it? Are we talking like drones?
No, I just got a brief little thing. But I don't know if they had drones back then. It's an older movie.
I mean, maybe for higher end stuff, not for consumer like we have now. But
what year was it?
Yeah, that was a long time ago, wasn't it?
2008. I don't know if drones were being... Maybe... I mean, I know they paid a lot of money for a helicopter shot with them on top of the tree. So that was their budget right there. I mean, think about how much drones have changed the game when it comes to establishing shots. Like, you don't need to rent a pilot helicopter and pay for the gas. And have a camera guy on top of it.
Well, I think I was watching
one. It's just crazy.
And it was, if you wanted a cool shot, you had to go that route. You have to have a helicopter. I mean, there's a shot in Dumb and Dumber where they're riding on that little bike, and they have this crazy pan-up shot. My wife goes, wow, they actually probably had to have a helicopter for that. I said, yeah, that was so long ago. They probably had to have a helicopter with Jim Carrey and the dude on their little bike, just to get that shot. That's so funny
warm
to think about. Just go, man.
So even the car accident, it was all done practical. You remember when he stops the car with his hand?
Stops the car.
That was all practical.
I liked that sequence. It felt like
the
it was
edits
playing
helped
out
that
in
a lot too.
Yes,
the edits really helped that sequence. And what's funny? I seem to appreciate the VFX more after watching breakdowns of it. When you're watching, you're like, oh my gosh, it's so goofy, spider monkey, and you see them climb up the tree. But after you kind of learn it's a really low budget and they had to do it this way, because it would cost so much if they wanted a 3D character and all that stuff, and it's just like, well, they totally made it work within the budget, and obviously the movie did well enough where I mean, because I think the budget goes up in the next couple of movies. It goes from 50 million to 130 million to around there for the next two or something like that. It goes,
and the effects do get way better, but at the same time, you have to remember this is not meant to be a Bram Stoker's Dracula vampire movies. Being a vampire is the focus. The focus is having a cheesy novel love story that one of them just happens to be vampires.
I think that was the focus for John. Mine was, I was looking for blood and biting. I was like, when are the lichens going to come? Yeah. Oh, and then do you remember the scene? So there's a scene where he has to catch an apple and he holds it a certain way because it's the cover of the book. I think they're at the cafeteria. There's a scene where she drops an apple and he kicks it up and he catches it. Yeah. So that was all done with a fishing pole and being timed.
I love that. Things like that I love hearing about. That's super fun. I like that.
Cool. See, that's why I'm telling you, after watching these things, I'm like, oh, I should watch this before watching the movie next time. Maybe I would enjoy it.
Yeah, you know what? I really enjoy that type of, and it's cool because I'm a little bit older than probably a lot of people watching our content. And so I love the old 1977 Star Wars practical special effects. But I have a student, just started the semester, and they were writing in I actually, my favorite artist, I asked them what their favorite artist was just as a, fun question to introduce themselves. They said John Dykstra and the original 1977 crew that did Star Wars. I'm like, how cool. It's still obviously a popular thing for people that want to get in the industry. And I love that people still give that a lot of recognition. So
it's history.
The practical stuff works great. If you can fish for apples, bob for apples, but you're actually having Edward do his thing, that's even more fun.
And then I wanted to end with a fun thing. So the first things that they shot was the action sequence at the end in the room. So a lot of that, they didn't even know what was even happening for the fight scenes, where they allowed the actors to determine what would happen. They're like, I don't know what's going to happen. You get thrown this way, you get thrown that way. It's just kind of just but that's why, remember I told you how the action scene at the end just kind of felt so fast and slow. Yeah. There's a reason why. There wasn't a plan.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, sometimes you hear the stories about the original Jurassic, or the first Jurassic Park with Steven Spielberg, how he would just come up with more shots on location once he got there. Sometimes it works out great, but sometimes it doesn't. I feel like action sequences, especially, you kind of need to have those laid out for them to really work, especially when it's a climax of your film. You know, that's kind of really
need
important.
it like storyboarded out so you know what's going to happen. Because with action, if you jump cameras or flip or break the 180 rule and stuff, you can get so lost in the battle sequences.
Yeah.
Like the Bourne Identity fight scenes are incredible, but they're so planned out with camera moves. Even though it looks like it's like handheld and they're like stuck in the corner of the room, you can tell like, you know, where the action is going to happen. And if they fall off this way, they come back in, you know, like everything's so planned out. And that's why those fight scenes, I mean, those fight scenes and car chase scenes are some of my favorite in the Bourne movies. I mean,
the Bourne movies are great.
For us to talk about.
That would be a fun one. I was going to say my favorite car chase in any movie is in the movie Ronin. It has Jean Reno, who plays great roles, and Robert De Niro. A lot of really good actors, but they have the best car sequence ever. But the Bourne movies always have that stuff. That'll be fun just from looking at it from an artistic point of view. There's a lot of really things to really appreciate there. And again, there's a lot of things to appreciate here as well. Obviously, they're going for a particular target audience that we do not happen to fall within, but some really cool effects work.
Don't count yourself out, John.
What a jerk. You guys see what I put up with here?
For the glitter man.
For the glitter. Not what was it? For Frodo, for the Hobbit, for Frodo, it's for the glitter. Yeah, so anyway.
For the glitter.
All right, guys, so let us know down below. Have you ever looked into the effects for Twilight? Did you like Twilight? Is it totally your jam or not quite your thing? We'd love to hear down below. And if you find some really good behind the scenes stuff for it as well, we'd love to look at some more of it. You can tell that Nick has already appreciated it more, having been able to see some of that. And sometimes it's hard to track down. Nick and I think off air have always talked about how we love streaming and it's a great time for entertainment, but we love the old DVDs and Blu-rays because they tend to come with a lot of special features and you don't really get as much of that in online content typically. So if you happen to know some you can point us to, we'd love to see that stuff. Check out asart.space for the audio and video links. We have audio podcasts, visual effects breakdowns, deepfakes, everything. Thank you very much for watching and we'll see you on the next AsArt.